Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Allison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Our research-backed videos are engaging, easy to follow, and they help ease the daily challenges like agitation and anxiety so that you can focus on connection and joy. Available by subscription on mobile and TV apps, Zinnia makes every day a little bit easier. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation, as usual, as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about dementia change. We will.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. Today, we're going to have a really interesting conversation. I hear this being asked about quite often, and it's about Down syndrome and the link to Alzheimer's. And we've got one mother whose son had Down syndrome and regression disorder, which was linked to Alzheimer's. And then, of course, we have one of our old friends back with us, too. And I'll give you all of those details when they introduce themselves. And but I think this will be a really good conversation. So many families are dealing with this, and we just don't have that much education and knowledge about that. So I'm excited to have this conversation. But before I introduce you, I always like to just refer people back to alzheimerspeaks.com to please check out all of our free educational resources. They're there for you to grab at the ready. There's videos, there's audios, there's written materials, you name it. There's ways to be able to learn about memory cafes and dementia-friendly communities and dementia in the arts and so many other things. And then also our sister site, which is Dementia Map, which is a global resource directory. So if you have a service, product, or tool and you're not in there, we'd love to have you in there. So reach out to me and I can help you with that, or there's a button right on the site that can step you through that as well. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and introduce you to our guests. So, ladies, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I don't know if Nancy's been on the show before, and Jodie, this is the first time I've met you, but I used to work with developmentally disabled for about 9 years. And so dealing with Down syndrome, I know the stigmas that come with it, and I also know the joy that is wrapped in the personalities of people with dementia. And I still am in touch with a lot of people in that arena, but I also meet a lot of families just in doing what I'm doing going, gosh, are these two connected? What's going on here? And so I'm really excited to have this conversation because I don't think we talk about this enough. So thank you both for joining me today on this conversation. I'm going to start out with Nancy. And Nancy has been with us a few times. She's a member of Dementia Map, and she writes wonderful articles, and she's just a joy to have on and be around. But Nancy, why don't you go ahead and tell people who you are and what the heck you do?
Okay, well, thank you, Lori. I am so excited to be on here today, and I invited my friend Jodie, who I've known for about 25 years. We've been in a volunteer group together, and when I wrote this book, I've written 2 books, and this book is called Remarkable Caregiving, The Care of Family and Friends. I actually interviewed Jodie about her son, Zach. And it was all anonymous then, but it's chapter 6. So if you want to read some of the background story, it's there. So I'm retired. I previously cared for my parents. My mother had cancer and my dad had dementia. He had was ultimately diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. So then I wrote my other book it's called Dancing with Lewy. And we didn't even know he had that. We knew he had vascular dementia, but we didn't even know he had that till right before he passed away. So it's a very hard journey. And my heart is with all people with dementia. And I am so excited to partner with Lori. The name of my little company is Grace's Message. And I say, with grace and hope, I write and speak about caregiving, loss, and other valuable messages. So I'm just excited to be here today. Thank you, Lori.
Well, great. Jodie, do you mind giving us a little background about yourself?
Well, I guess I'm connected. Like Nancy said, we've been friends for a long time, but I'm connected with this cause because my son Zachary, who's now 34, has Down syndrome, and through this journey that we've been going on and the research and stuff that we've been doing, we've realized in the last 5 or 6 years, when we've been dealing with his regression, that it's really down and it's connected to Alzheimer's. That's really what we're coming up with. And so I'm a mom. I'm a mom of two, my daughter Carrie Jo, and of course our son Zachary, who has Down syndrome, and my husband Scott. And I'm just a mom. I recently retired from owning a business for 41 years. So a little bit more free time on my hands.
Just a mom.
Yeah.
You think of all the balls you're keeping in the air. But it's so funny because that's how so many of us look at that. And yet, when you look at that job description, it's massive in terms of what you do. Well, thank you both for introducing yourselves. I appreciate that very much. Nancy, I want to hear a little bit more about how you two got to know one another and the types of things that you've done over the years together.
So we both belong to a group called the Women of Today. It's a community service leadership training group. And even though we're in different cities, I live in Coon Rapids and Jodie's up north in Aiken, but we met through going to conventions and things like that. And ultimately, I was state president, and Jodie, I think, was a state program manager with me. So we got to know each other, and then a couple of years later, she became state president. So just through the years, we've done a lot of volunteer work, and we have a lot of mutual friends and still see each other now and then. And like I said, when I wrote Remarkable Caregiving, I thought about Jodie and her story with Zach, and it was about 5 years ago. So she's been through another whole lifetime since then. But we've just really, both of us have a heart for people. I love that.
Okay, great. Jodie, anything you want to add to that?
No. I think we've learned a lot from each other, and we've leaned on each other, and we've just really been good friends.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Jodie, I want to talk a little bit about Zachary and your family's journey, with Down syndrome. And did you know right away, or, when did it all hit you?
Well, first of all, I'm going to put a little caveat that I'm a very emotional person. And even though he is 34 years old, sometimes when I'm recounting his story, his beginning of life, it's still sometimes hard. So just give that little caveat there. But no, actually, I was pregnant and everything was going great. And we live in a very rural area. And I had Zachary, and I kind of had a few complications having him. And so we kind of had to get him out pretty quickly. And then the doctors over the next couple of months, I think that they kind of maybe recognized that there was something going on, but weren't really sure because he really didn't look like he had Down syndrome, and they weren't as educated in that area because they don't see it very much. In fact, when Zach was born, the last person in our county that was born with Down syndrome was 15 years prior. So,
oh, wow.
So there was a lot, there was a big lull. So these doctors were young and probably hadn't, experienced that. So they weren't sure. But Zachary he got sick pretty much about 2 months in. He got like a congestion in his chest, and we just could not get rid of it. and we kept doing all these different antibiotics and everything. And so the doctor said, I think we're going to test him for cystic fibrosis. We just got to make sure that there's, nothing going on. So we got tested for cystic fibrosis. That was a whole, train that you go down and all those thoughts. And remember, this is 1991, no internet, no social media, it's the library, and that's about all you have for resources. And that came back and that was fine. And then just one day, our doctor, who has a brother with Down syndrome, said, "You know what? I think we should test Zach for Down syndrome." Well, you could have hit my husband and I over like a wet noodle, because we're like, "What? Where did that come from?" And of course, it took a long time. It was a blood test, and it was sent down to the Mayo Clinic. It took about 2 or 3 weeks to get those chromosomes studied back. And during that time, it was really hard. Like 1 minute, we were thinking, oh my gosh, he doesn't have Down syndrome. Look at what he's doing. And then the next minute was like, oh my gosh, yes, he does. He looks just like he does. He's acting like he does. And so the doctor called us and said, yeah, I want to have you come in. We got the results, and we just go over everything. And so we had like a last appointment of the day type situation, and the doctor's coming down the hall, and for some reason the door was open. I think it was open. My husband thinks it was closed, but we both heard the same thing. The doctor saying to his nurse, you might as well go home. This is going to take a while. So we knew. It's like, oh, there it is. And so devastation, of course, not knowing what,
It's okay. I'll probably start crying right with you, because, these are real emotions in terms of what you went through in life. I mean, it's huge. And, we need to honor those feelings and, not stuff them. So thank you for sharing your authentic self with us, because that's important.
Well, so he continued to be ill for, the next couple of weeks. And then he got very, very ill, and we had to take him down to the Twin Cities to Children's Hospital in St. Paul, because his lung collapsed because of all of the pneumonia and stuff that was in there. And of course, St. Paul Children's Hospital is a teaching hospital. And so, oh my gosh, here we got to this young baby with Down syndrome, so we had all these people coming in and wanting to learn from him. And we're just trying to get over this pneumonia that he has. And then one day we had this doctor walk in, and he said, well, good morning. My name is, Dr. Christopher Mortel, and I'm the pediatric oncologist on staff here. Well, oncology means cancer. So we're like, what the heck? And so then we found out that Zachary was in a pre-state of AML leukemia, which is really the adult form of leukemia, when he was 6 months old. And
oh my goodness.
yeah, so it's like Down syndrome. We have to put that off to the side, and we have to do this cancer journey first. And so that took about 3 years of a cancer journey, and that's a whole story in itself. But once he was, through his cancer, which was really very, very tough. He just about didn't make it many times, and but he finally persevered, and here he is 34 years later, thanks to a lot of miracles, and I call them miracles, and someday I'm going to tell that story about all those miracles. But then we were able to kind of backpedal and then start working on the Down syndrome again. And we have a great community here in Aiken. Our school system is excellent for people with disabilities. So his elementary years, his middle school years, his high school years were very supportive by all the teaching staff and our community. Very well received, very respectful, all those kinds of things. And he graduated with his class, which we were so happy to see. And at the graduation, the principal said, now, when we say the names, no clapping afterwards, because we got to get through all these people. And so, of course, I think if Zachary didn't have Down syndrome, he would be the class clown, honest to goodness. Anyway, so he's walking across the stage to get his diploma, and he decides that he's going to hug his principal. And so he walked up to hug his principal, and so then everyone clapped. So that just made us feel like he was really part of that class, and it made us very, very happy. And he went on to live independently. He lives in a host home, which he has a caregiver that lives there 24/7 with him. And that's a whole nother story, how we got to that situation. But so he was living on his own, independently as possible. He had a job. He worked every day at our local achievement center, and life was okay. We had a few up and downs, with, routines and this and that, but everything seemed pretty good until it didn't seem pretty good, until he started kind of regressing and having some signs of his mental health not doing very well. And of course, the resources for adults with Down syndrome at this time were nothing. I mean, social media was just starting to come into, effect, and really all I had was the library. And I think I recounted this story with Nancy, that I went to the library to check out a book. Well, the book was, published like in 1973. And what I read, I didn't want to read. And it was like, oh my gosh, I've got to find a source for more information. And that's kind of when the journey began to kind of figure out what the heck was going on with his mental health.
Well, I was wondering, being in a small town, what the resources were like down here. I worked in the group home industry for 9 years. And so I was in one that was like 120 bed. And then that got bought out by another company that had all these small group homes, 6 to 8 people. And there was a ton of them down here. And there was a big movement. But as I had mentioned, we had a cabin up by where Jodie lives. And I don't remember ever seen or hearing anything about disabilities, or people living really with disabilities up there, other than, if you went and visited the nursing home, is kind of where you would see people. So I was kind of wondering how that worked for you. So how long did you keep him home with you then?
Let's see, till he was like age 23, 24-ish, right around there. I can't remember exactly.
This Christmas, give more than just a gift. Give encouragement, inspiration, and joy. In the Crosswalk Holiday Gift Guide, you'll discover a curated collection of meaningful books and devotionals that celebrate faith, family, and the real reason for the season. This Christmas, we invite you to share comfort, quiet, or excitement with each person on your gift list. From beautifully illustrated Bibles and devotionals to novels and picture books, this guide holds the perfect book for every reader, including yourself. So stuff those stories into stockings, wrap collections with care, tuck a book or two into your own nightstand, and join us in celebrating the wonder of reading this Christmas. Explore the Crosswalk Holiday Gift Guide and find something special for everyone on your list. Visit crosswalk.com/gift guide today.
It was 2014 or 15, I think, when he moved into his house. I can't remember.
Okay. Yeah, I used to head up some programs for independent living, try to get people to live as independently in their apartments as possible, which was always really fun. So now you're talking about his regression. Now, is Down syndrome regression disorder, that's a whole different category from just regular Down syndrome then?
Yes. So this started happening when he was around 25, 26, 27, right around there, that age. All of a sudden, his routine became a non-routine. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't want to go to bed at night, and he didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to get up in the morning. And then he started self-harming himself, having kind of outrageous behaviors that he had never had before. He'd have behaviors before, but it was so far and, far in between. It was like it wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden they were coming like on a regular basis. You know, he didn't really want to do activities anymore. His speech regressed. He used to love to read and write, and that went away. And so it's like there's really something wrong. So
Mm-hmm.
we saw our local doctor here, our general practitioner, who is a great man. He has been with us on this journey since, the beginning. And he helped us with, depression drugs as much as he could until we got to a point where he's like, guys, I don't know what else to do. I don't really have any other answers for you. He had aged out of the Down syndrome clinic down in Minneapolis. That was till age 21. And the nice doctor there actually let us go until he was like 22. And then finally he said, guys, I just can't help you anymore. My expertise is not here for adults. And so it's like, oh my gosh, what do we do? So I just kept uh, reaching out online, researching, doing this, looking for local resources, and there just was not much. And there were two doctors, Dr. Dennis McGuire and Dr. Brian Chacon. They wrote a book on mental wellness in adults with Down syndrome. And we had heard them both speak at a Down syndrome conference, and I bought their book. And I read that, and I read that, and I read that. And it's like, we've done that celiac, we've done all these things that could be thyroid, we've done all these things that could be the cause of these behaviors and this regression. And then one day I was on Facebook and I found this group that it was a group somebody started that they're Down syndrome parents and their kids are going through the same thing that Zachary was going through. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's somebody else in the world. And so I was accepted into the group right away. And that's kind of when I found out all these other resources that I could tap into. And one of those resources was Dr. Santora, Jonathan Santora, who was doing a study in LA at Children's Hospital in LA. And so I sent our descriptions and everything, and can we get in this study? Can we, whatever. Well, Zachary right away did not qualify because he had cancer. So he's an outlier, and they really don't want outliers in this study. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to follow, what you're finding out. I'm going to keep track of what you're finding out. And so, just kind of following that. And as I was following that, he just got worse and worse. And I finally found, this was before 2020, where telemed, people did telemed, and we found a doctor in Connecticut that was willing to listen to us and kind of take on Zach's case. And he did a lot of patients with autism. So I thought maybe that's our answer. So we connected with him and we started seeing him. And he put Zachary on a different psychotic medicine. And that was horrible. He became a totally different person. And then we would go again. It's like, okay, this isn't working. And I don't know if you don't know much about psychotic meds. You got to ramp up and then you got to ramp down before you can start another one. So we were ramping down on the second one when we went to see him. And he said, well, I think that we're going to try Zach on this. And that is, as a mom and as a parent, I said, I'm done. This cannot happen. His quality of life is zero. Our quality of life was zero. Our caregiver was at her wit's end. And I was honestly, I was afraid he was going to die because he would, in these rages, and that's exactly what it was, in these rages, he would get so upset that I was afraid he was going to have a heart attack because it was just unbelievable and horrible, horrible, horrible to experience. And so, I had no place to go. So I reached out to the psychiatric nurse here in Aiken. I had worked at the hospital previously as the foundation director, and I had her email, so I just kind of sent her this heartfelt email, like, "Can you help me? Can you please, if you can't help me, do you know of anybody that can help us?" And she called me and she said, "I'm going to help you. I'm going to help Zach. We're going to do this together, and we're going to bring quality of life back to Zach. We're going to do this." And she said, "Call this number and make an appointment." And so this is like November, the end of November, and I called to make an appointment. "Yeah, she can see you the 1st of January." It's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And so we were pretty much on our own from November until that appointment of dealing with these outrages and things. And so when we started to see her, and she started following all these studies and helping doing that research right along with me, we kind of got Zach on a better path. And one of the first things that she did is we did a blood test that you can test how your blood metabolizes psychotic drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so when the results came back, he was in the total wrong family of drugs. And so she got us in the right family of drugs. And then we started following the study from Dr. Santoro, and we kind of got back on the right path. That did not happen overnight. That happened over a year and a half or so in that time. But I found out in that doing my research that Alzheimer's is really rare in Down syndrome people before age 40. But through all these studies that have started happening from like 2017, 2018 to today, they are really realizing that the Down syndrome regression disorder really is symptoms of Alzheimer's. So he's really been getting these symptoms of Alzheimer's for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And by age 55, most people with Down syndrome have some sort of dementia of Alzheimer's. And it's just devastating, especially when there isn't a lot of people to reach out to help you and help you navigate this whole crisis. So we're grateful for what we've found so far. And these studies have really brought a lot of information to help Zachary have a quality of life again. It's not great. It's never going to be where it was before. But, our goal is just to give him some quality of life.
Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Allison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Zinnia offers research-backed videos intentionally created for people with dementia, engaging, calming, and easy to follow. Whether you need to ease agitation, create moments of joy, or make daily routines smoother, Zinnia is here to help. Family and professional caregivers use our content to turn challenges into opportunities for connection. Accessible by subscription on mobile devices and connected TVs, Zinnia is simple to use whenever you need it. Because when caregiving feels easier, life feels better. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
Well, you talk about the studies and, it's rare before 40 because nobody was looking at it. It's kind of like for regular dementia. Well, you can't have it. You can't have early onset. You can't have this. You're supposed to be 70s and over. And we're seeing a lot of people in their 40s, without Down syndrome that are getting this disease. There over in the UK, there are children that are being diagnosed now with it, and it's almost like there's got to be this pounding on the doors and this screaming to get people to look at things differently, because the stereotypes are within society, but they're within the medical field as well in terms of who can have what. And, doctors aren't educated to look in those areas. And so, thank God, you had a friend that said, we're going to push through this. We're going to find this out. The other thing I find interesting is when you mentioned about the psychotropic drugs, that's a very common thing with dementia, that people have horrible side effects from them. And I feel bad that I did not know this. We didn't run into this with my mom. My mom lived with dementia for 30 years. But I honestly, until right now, I didn't know there was a blood test they could take to see should you even go on them, but they give them to you first. No, yeah. You should take that test first because the ramifications are horrible. They're long lasting. Like you said, you just can't take them off cold turkey. It's a slow process. So the damage that they're doing by not doing that blood test first, I'm sorry, but to me, that's like criminal in terms of, family balance and just treating people with dignity. And I don't know, maybe that drug test cost, $10 million to do and they don't want to do it. I don't know. But boy, that's something they should look into. And it's something they should look into for every single person with dementia before they order those things, because I can tell you story after story after story after story, and it is ridiculous that is happening to people.
I think that you're right. The cost is a barrier, because when we got to that point, of course, Zach's on Medicaid, and it did not pay for that test. And the test was, I think, like $6,000. And so we were fortunate enough that we found those funds to get it done, because we needed it. We needed that test to make sure that he could get on the right road, and it was well worth it.
But the asinine thing is a lot of people who have those symptoms end up hospitalized, and it's way bigger than a $6,000 bill, and it's typically more than once.
Yeah.
And so people aren't looking at that at a realistic view. If insurance companies truly want to keep things, costs down, they got to look a little harder at prevention and quality of care. And I have my tails up because I'm going through a lot of healthcare stuff with a loved one with dementia. And it's like, I thought the system was bad before, and it seems like it's gotten worse. And so I'm very frustrated with our healthcare system right now, and how difficult it is to maneuver, and the lack of education and guidance. And I understand, they aren't specialists that we're seeing in many cases, and they're not educated, but then refer things out. Yes. And just because someone has Down syndrome doesn't mean they can't have other diseases. I mean, Zachary was way ahead of the game having cancer when he was a baby. So it's kind of like, stop pigeonholing everything. And I personally worry a little bit with AI coming into play, telling the doctors what things are and aren't. Because, I think there's got to be that, in some cases, that gut reaction by the doctor if something's off, and we need to move in a little different direction. And it seems like hands are being tied more and more with a lot of this stuff. But I'm so happy that you got the funding for that and were able to find that. Have they done like a PET scan or anything of his head to see, because there's so many different types of dementia, what type of dementia you're dealing with could have a great effect on what medications he should have or how it should be treated, or just for family to know what the heck should we expect?
Yes. Well, so when we got connected with Dr. Larson, she's our psych doctor. we did have a neurologist available to us. He is out of Coon Rapids, and so he does not want to put Zachary out. He said every time we put people with Down syndrome under anesthesia, they lose something. And he said, so I don't want to put him out until we absolutely, absolutely have to. And so he just conducted another kind of like a brainwave test that we could do just with the nodules on the head and, kind of sleeping and, kind of get him to relax and kind of just getting a baseline there because he did not want to put him out. So that's what we did. And with that, he just said, this is going to happen. But, there are some drugs that I can help you when we get to that part, but I don't want to start them before we need to because there's only 3. And once we're out of those 3, I have nothing else. And so he said, let's just kind of monitor that and kind of review that and go from there. And so that's kind of where we are with that. But I just wanted to make a note here. So like when you're talking about these studies that are done in Down syndrome people, when these studies were started, like in 2017, 2018, and Alzheimer's, Down syndrome people were not included in that. And us parents are all jumping up and down. Don't you see what's in front of your face? We're getting these symptoms in our 20s and our 30s for our kids. And if you looked at them and included them in your studies, you could find so much information. And finally, they woke up to that and they started including people with Down syndrome. And there was actually in 2017, there was a young man. His name was Frank Stevens, and he's on the board, or he was on the board of the Global Down Syndrome Foundation, and that's a great resource that I've found. But he went in front of Congress, and he spoke about the importance of including Down syndrome people in all your studies, not just Alzheimer's, but all of your studies. And this young man, he received a standing ovation from the Congress on his speech. And lo and behold, about 3 years later, the National Institute of Health, at the time of his speech, they were receiving like maybe $35 million a year for research. Well, with his speech and then all this lobbying, I imagine that had to take place, they awarded our area $111 million. So the resources available to study of what happens between this regression and then what happens in between until we get to that point of dementia is huge. And then lastly, in 2023, I think that we were just awarded in 2022, $133 million to do the research. And that's all, it's so exciting for us. And it brings us so much hope, how to deal with this horrible regression and the disease that's to come. We know that disease, that Alzheimer's is to come. And maybe, I don't know who's aware, who's not aware, but there's been no updates from the National Institute of Health on those funds since July of 2025. And that's just depressing. So we don't know where those funds are to continue all this great research that they're finding out. So, but thank God for that young man.
Yeah, what a powerhouse.
Yes, for bringing that attention to so many people and saying, we need to be part of this too. And I'm grateful to him. I really am so grateful.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad, when the neurologist said, I don't want to put him under, that is so true. And it doesn't make any difference if it's an MRI or PET scan or surgery, that anesthesia can throw people for a loop. And it is very common when they go in, when they come out, they're just down a notch lower again. And it can impact people in various ways, but it is very, very common for that to be a side effect. And for him to explain that to you, kudos to him, because that tells me he gets it.
Well, and it's really hard for us because our son is totally nonverbal. And before he started his regression, he did have some language and some sign language. and some of his own sign language that he just kind of made up himself, which that's kind of what we're left with now. But so he can't tell us. He can't say, boy, I used to be able to clap my hands and I can't anymore. What's wrong, Mom?
Mhm.
Or I used to be able to remember, how to make my cereal in the morning and I can't anymore. So
Mhm.
we have no way of measuring that anymore.
Does he have any tools to help him? I know there's something it's called like a lymphograph or something like that, that I know people with dementia have used, and others. I'm going to see if I can find the product in another.
All through elementary school and high school, he had a Dynavox, which is
Okay.
really like pictures, and then you push
Mhm.
on the picture and it would speak for you and say ball or
Okay.
grilled cheese. And he had
Uh-huh.
that, and then he kind of like lost interest in it. He didn't want to use it anymore.
Okay.
So, it kind of went to the wayside. And then along with the Down syndrome, a lot of people with Down syndrome have, OCD, and he has severe OCD. So the tools that he did had, we kind of had to take away because he just obsessed about them, getting caught on one word for
Hmm.
for hours. He would just say one word, one word, one word. So we had to kind of remove that from him because it was, causing so much ink in his life, so much, you know,
Sure.
disruption. And so right now we're working on an iPhone
Okay.
with a new software that has just came out. And so we're kind of working on that with the Pacer Center
Okay.
and kind of developing something that he can maybe use down the
Okay.
road here. So
Okay. Yeah, I found this one. It's called Lingraphica, and it looks like an iPad kind of touch screen. And it might just be that it's gotten too complicated and it's too frustrating. And then people back away, from that.
well, just like you and I, anybody, if you come up on something that's hard,
Hmm.
you find a better way to do it so you don't have to do it the hard way.
Yep.
When you don't have a better way to do it, then you just don't do it.
Yep.
So when it's just too hard to formulate a word or formulate a sentence or formulate anything, then you just stop talking. And that's pretty much what he's done is he's just stopped talking.
This Christmas, give more than just a gift. Give encouragement, inspiration, and joy. In the Crosswalk Holiday Gift Guide, you'll discover a curated collection of meaningful books and devotionals that celebrate faith, family, and the real reason for the season. This Christmas, we invite you to share comfort, quiet, or excitement with each person on your gift list. From beautifully illustrated Bibles and devotionals to novels and picture books, this guide holds the perfect book for every reader, including yourself. So stuff those stories into stockings, wrap collections with care, tuck a book or two into your own nightstand, and join us in celebrating the wonder of reading this Christmas. Explore the Crosswalk Holiday Gift Guide and find something special for everyone on your list. Visit crosswalk.com/gift guide today.
Yep. Yep. Which is definitely understandable on that. Nancy, any thoughts? I mean, this is just a really interesting conversation, so I don't mean to push you over to the side, but
Oh, no, no.
I just think of Jodie and her family and the grief process of what all you've gone through. And the depth of your love for your child, and standing by trying to fix stuff that's not always fixable.
I just think it's amazing. I have several other friends with kids with Down syndrome. Some of them are younger, but I mean, all of the moms love our kids, but I just see these moms with these kids with special challenges are so fiercely protective and so, just want the best for their kids. And, just hearing Jodie's story makes me want to cry, and Jodie and I were talking the day, why does this happen? And we don't know, but, we know that Zach was given Jodie and Scott, and they've been through so much, but they're just really amazing people. So I don't know. I kind of laugh when Jodie says she's just a mom, because most people are moms or kind of raise their kids by the time they're 18 or 20. And, and people with children with these disabilities are parenting intensely for years. So I just admire you, Jodie. I think I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, you really just amplify what unconditional love is, that force, and that is, and maybe this occurred, as a life lesson to the rest of us, for you guys to be an example for us and to highlight the needs that are still out there, that we're not as inclusive and we're not as savvy as we think we are in terms of disease and caring for one another and all of those types of things. Well, I surely hope you guys don't lose your funding. That's for sure. That would be horrible. But I know out in the dementia world, that's happening to a lot of people right now, and a lot of communities. We had talked about your studies and stuff, but are there studies just for people with Down syndrome and dementia related disorders at all, or are they being put into, the larger pools? I know what I have seen over time, like there's a lot of people that have mild cognitive behavior and they'll be kicked out of a group, well, no, we don't want that, because you're just mild. And they're like, there's nothing mild about this, you come live in my shoes. And so they get frustrated. And I understand where the studies, sometimes they have to funnel down, but maybe they do need to open the doors a little wider to be able to see the overlaps that are happening.
Well, there's a couple of studies going on now. It's called the ABATE study, and it's being done in the US, Britain, and Spain. And it's a trial of two different kind of drugs, and I'm going to emaciate these words. Donanemab, I don't know. Lecanemab, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a mom. I just don't know how to say those words, but they're finding out and finding out in some of these studies that these two drugs are binding onto those amyloids that are in the brain, and they're kind of telling the body, get rid of this, get rid of this. And so I'm not sure if there's Down syndrome people on that study or not. But there's also the HERO study that's happening, and that is with just Down syndrome people ages 35 to 55. And they're trying to work on what can we find out before all these symptoms of the regression starts. It's like we had no idea about anything until all of a sudden these behaviors started and all that. So they're kind of trying to study that. And then the new study that's starting at the end of this year is called the Aladdin study. And it's an acronyms are amyloid lowering for Alzheimer's and Downs, Myab investigation. So they just call it the Aladdin study anyways. And that's being conducted at USC, California. And that has just Down syndrome people in it. And they're just taking that drug and just giving them that drug. For 2 years, they're going to study just that drug on Down syndrome people to see if they can kind of destroy those amyloids before they get into the tangles that then becomes the tau, then becomes the erosion of the brain. So
it's interesting because I've talked with a lot of researchers, and I am in no way, shape, or form a medical professional. I'm just a frustrated daughter, like you're a frustrated mom, but there's a lot of controversy over is this, about the amyloid plaque and the taus or not. And I'm glad to see studies are expanding from that, because like the nun studies was huge, and it punched a zillion holes in that. And yet that is still kind of the primary thing out there pushing through. Research is kind of it's a trigger point for me, and I don't really know why, but it just is very frustrating. And again, this probably wouldn't work in your particular case, but I still think like one of the best modes to fend it off is art and social engagement. And there's finally some studies being done in that. And I don't know if Zachary does art at all. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. I have a program called Dementia in the Arts that's on my site under the free educational resource tools. But what people with dementia would tell us over and over is when they get in the zone doing their artwork, their symptoms melt away. It's like another part of their brain kicks in. And again, no one has to be a professional at this. It's just about giving people the opportunity. And I think a lot of times too, people believe because we've been told they can't learn anything new, but art is art, and there's no right or there's no wrong way unless you're giving them something to color and telling them to stay within the lines. I mean, art can be beautiful in a lot of different fashions. We've got one guy who, for example, used to be able to paint with his brushes and things, and with his tremors he can't. And so now he puts his oils just down on his platform, and then he gets a plastic grocery bag and he swirls it around, and they're gorgeous. And all these little things come and their texture, but it's kind of endless. So I always encourage people, if they're open to it, try. I mean, there's lots of different things that may work or may not, but you're never going to know if you don't try. And if we go in thinking they can't, well, they're not going to be able to. And maybe that's us sitting down with them. Or music, there's more studies coming out what those waves do to the brain.
I love what Jodie said. Her husband takes Zach to Timberwolves games. And Zach absolutely loves to watch the basketball games. It just gives him so much pleasure. And I'm sure your husband enjoys seeing him, see those too. So I think that's a great example of, how to give people some joy.
Yeah. And so the senses don't get overwhelmed in that setting at all. Like a lot of people go, it's too noisy, and they'll wear, headsets that are noise canceling or anything.
He's been taking him for a while, he's been taking him since he's been, probably 7 or 8 years old. So he was used to that environment before his regression. And, he struggles a little bit. So we just remove I shouldn't say my husband, because he does it every time. He removes every single obstacle that you can think of. We're always looking ahead. We're always looking in the environment and taking away obstacles that we know can cause a behavior or an annoyance or anything like that, an outburst, whatever you want to call it. And so we're always on our feet, always thinking. And my husband has it down to a science. He parks in the same spot. They walk down the same hallway. They walk right to the seat. They order the same food. And he does so enjoy it. And it's funny that Nancy, you say that, because he is nonverbal, but he knows every number on the Minnesota Timberwolves team. And my husband makes him say the name. So he will hold up, like, say the number 11. And then my husband will say, well, who's that? And then he has to really think about it. And he just comes out and he says, Nas Reed. And
wow.
In that, whenever we talk about that, and if we're in a stressful situation, we need to redirect whatever it is, we talk about the Timberwolves, and it kind of brings them down and it brings them back to a more stable place. So it really is. It's almost like that's his art, kind of, sort of.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. It would be interesting to reach out to them and see if even there's like a Make-A-Wish type thing for him.
Oh, he's had many moments at the Timberwolves. He has been captain, and he got to stand next to his hero, Kevin Garnett. He just absolutely loves Kevin Garnett. So he got,
oh my gosh,
the ball. He got to go to the circle in the middle when the refs are talking. And then Kevin signed a ball and then gave him the ball. He's been season ticket holder of the game. Crunch visits him just about every time he's there. The cheerleaders visit him. Yeah, he kind of has his he rules the roost there, kind of, sort of, a little bit.
Oh, how cool is that though?
Yeah,
That's really, really neat.
Yeah.
Really, really neat. Oh my gosh. To me, this has just been a fascinating conversation, and I really appreciate you sharing all these personal details, because I know it can be tough, but it's so important, and I think it'll help so many others as well. What do you think the future looks like for Zach, and knowing that Alzheimer's or dementia is going to be, part of his life and part of yours?
Yeah. I'm tired, constantly stressed out, and I just don't see that going away ever. But I do feel better now that we have these trials in order. I don't know if these trials are going to help Zachary
Mm-hmm.
in his lifetime, but they're going to help the people behind him. And just like when he was born, he made life easier in a small town to have a disability. And then when he got his cancer, he was considered at Children's Hospital almost like a miracle patient because of everything that fell into place that needed to fall into place for him to go into remission, to, all of the things. Like, I just feel better about being able to maybe manage this regression and what's to come, and just kind of trying to learn to accept it along the way too. And we try as much as possible is to kind of manage his stress, make sure that he's getting proper sleep and he's got a proper diet, keep working on those communication things, like, he doesn't read anymore, but I read to him, and do memory games. We play games all the time. He does puzzles, and we, encourage visits from family and friends, because he's kind of like a silo now. He's kind of on his own at his house because he's not going to work anymore, and he's not really doing the activities that his peers are doing. So we just keep working on that to kind of keep that going, to kind of keep that open for him, and just making plans for what the future holds. If he outlives us, what's our plan going to be? Have that into place so our daughter doesn't have, that on her plate along with her young family. And just keep working on all of those things. The future's uncertain for everybody. And his is maybe a little bit more uncertain because we don't know what's going to happen, but we just keep working on it, keep reaching. I told Nancy I'm going to be, I swear to God, I'm never going to stop looking for a way to help him. I'm going to be that mom that.
This Christmas, give more than just a gift. Give encouragement, inspiration, and joy. In the Crosswalk Holiday Gift Guide, you'll discover a curated collection of meaningful books and devotionals that celebrate faith, family, and the real reason for the season. This Christmas, we invite you to share comfort, quiet, or excitement with each person on your gift list. From beautifully illustrated Bibles and devotionals to novels and picture books, this guide holds the perfect book for every reader, including yourself. So stuff those stories into stockings, wrap collections with care, tuck a book or two into your own nightstand, and join us in celebrating the wonder of reading this Christmas. Explore the Crosswalk Holiday Gift Guide and find something special for everyone on your list. Visit crosswalk.com/gift guide today.
I'm never going to stop.
You're not going to be that mom. You are that mom. You've already proven that. You've got a long history of proving that. You should be very proud of yourself. And I loved when you talked about, the example of going to the Timberwolves game and your husband kind of pulling every obstacle out and kind of getting that routine down. I call that sensory care. And I don't think most professionals or families know and really truly understand the significance of that. But looking at what are the triggers, and I don't like using the word behavior because it's a reaction. It's saying something's off here, guys.
Yeah.
It's something's off. I mean, everybody acts up and acts differently when something's off. I don't care what age you are. I don't care if you put on your Stepford wife smile. You're going to have other nonverbals that are going to come out that are like, no, I'm still pissed, even though I got a smile on my face. This isn't right. Those things happen. And so by really looking at what brings him comfort and joy and what triggers him, and preempting those things, because there are a lot of things that we can do, which your husband has proven has made those journeys successful for him. Yes. And getting other people to understand that there is a group of kids called, I want to say they're online, called just Caregiver Kids, or kids caregivers, and they're a nonprofit. But when you mentioned that he likes doing puzzles, they get puzzles for free, and they'll send them out to kids to bring in to people in need. Their primary focus is dementia, but he would fall into that category. But maybe if there's kids in your neighborhood or in your community that would want to get involved and visit with him and do a puzzle time, it could be something they put on their resume for college, in terms of volunteering, or they might expand it to go to nursing homes and memory care communities or whatever to help people. But again, I think both sides get something out of that. So we are seeing more intergenerational stepping in, and even our young kids wanting to help for support with that.
I was just going to say it's needed. I mean, and as Nancy was a caregiver for her dad, I mean, we need that support too. So knowing that they can sit for 20 minutes with someone and do something, like 20 minutes for a caregiver, a reprieve is endless. Yep. And so to have people volunteer to do that is just astronomical. They don't know the impact that they make on the caregiver who's exhausted.
Oh yeah, you can get a 20-minute cat nap. You go to the bathroom by yourself, and do some laundry or walk out to get the mail. I mean, it's just all those little simple things that people don't understand. Exactly. Take a shower. Because sometimes you just don't feel like you have the ability to do that, depending on how someone's day is going. It's massively, massively huge. And I think it's all about, as a society at all ages, learning about compassion and empathy, and that, and also learning that each individual has the power of one to really change somebody else's life. And do something good for them. But in return, anytime we volunteer, we all know this, we get more out of it than they do. Nowadays, everybody's just texting, and they're thumbing it on their phones, and they're not even talking to people or having eye contact anymore, or even in the same room anymore, Yet I'm big on Zoom, I do these things, but I think for that relationship building and really understanding one another as human beings is very, very critical.
Well, it's important because the world is made up of all kinds of different people. Yep. And you need to know that when you see someone like Zach in the community, or someone that's got dementia or any other kind of a disability, that the first thing that comes to your mind shouldn't be, oh, they're weird. The first thing that comes to your mind should be, how can I help them? Yeah. Or how can I make them feel comfortable in my coffee shop or in my grocery store or wherever it is? It's just like that. That's where I wish that people would go first.
And there's so many little things that businesses can do to correct that. So it can increase their business. It can increase the comfort for people being there. I mean, there's so many levels of and layers of life lessons, wrapped in kindness.
Exactly.
Well, ladies, again, I can't thank you enough for sharing your words of wisdom, and Nancy for connecting us, and your writings are beautiful. The knowledge that you have as well, to support people through these caregiving journeys. Even though you might not be dealing with dementia, if you're caring for someone else, you're going to be going through a lot of the same things that someone else is going through. You don't have to have the exact disease and titles. There's just a ton of overlap. And not that I'm saying, don't match up, because that is helpful, but surely don't discount how much more we are alike than different. in these cases. So for our audience, I want to say, be a giver of hope, like, click, and share. It's not because I chase the numbers. It's because I know the power of one. I know your power of one. By clicking and sharing and pushing this information out to your sphere of influence, there's somebody out there that needs it. Could be somebody that you know really well that never even discloses to you because they're so uncomfortable with the journey and they just don't feel like there's help and they're feeling isolated. And the more we can push content out to people where they feel valued and heard and that they can gain knowledge without somebody knocking at their door trying to solicit them, just to be able to do it on their own pace, you'll make a huge, huge difference. So, join our community and be a giver of hope. I am going to have their contact information in the notes, but I'll also mention it here. Nancy can be reached at gracesmessage.com, or you can email her at nancy.polao2@gmail.com. And then Jodie can be reached at Jodie, which is JODIE, and Scott J at gmail.com as well. Thanks, ladies. Have a brilliant day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jodie.
Thank you.
This Christmas, give more than just a gift. Give encouragement, inspiration, and joy. In the Crosswalk Holiday Gift Guide, you'll discover a curated collection of meaningful books and devotionals that celebrate faith, family, and the real reason for the season. This Christmas, we invite you to share comfort, quiet, or excitement with each person on your gift list. From beautifully illustrated Bibles and devotionals to novels and picture books, this guide holds the perfect book for every reader, including yourself. So stuff those stories into stockings, wrap collections with care, tuck a book or two into your own nightstand, and join us in celebrating the wonder of reading this Christmas. Explore the Crosswalk Holiday Gift Guide and find something special for everyone on your list. Visit crosswalk.com/gift guide today.